Hello, welcome to MEE. MEE is where we motivate, educate, and engage on topics that impact on our community, on our families, even on our world, particularly for families from our community. So today we're having one of our MEE stories. Actually, it's the first MEE story for 2022. MEE stories is where we get people to come in and talk about topics. You know, you can hear from people about their experiences, about what they believe and what they know. And trust me, when we do bring people onto this platform, it's because they know what they're talking about. It's not about hearsay or just about the emotion of it. It's about the reality. And today, what we'll be talking about will actually help us know a bit better, engage a bit better, and do a bit better so we can actually be well informed to support appropriately. So today I have with me Eliyo. You're welcome, Eliyo.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to read a bit about who she is, and that will give you, the confirmation you need to know that she does know her stuff. So Eliyo is married with 4 children, and she's an experienced project manager, especially in terms of the transport and construction industry. She has a passion for education. She developed programs for children who were vulnerable because of expulsion or exclusion. And she has helped children to identify who they are and their purpose, and also to reintegrate them back into schools. She did this even with her then company called the Wisdom Tree Limited in schools in Lambeth and Barnet. She also has experience with working with children in the Pupil or Pupil, the Pupil referral unit. She also became the co-founder with her husband of a Cedar Tree Saturday School. And that's where she has done most of her work, but she still has a passion and a flair. So I'm going to just ask Eliyo to tell us, what do you understand, or what's your understanding, so for the sake of the viewers and people watching, what does it mean to be excluded? What is educational exclusion? And in the same vein, tell us what a pupil referral unit or PRU is called, or what it means.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you today. As you quite rightly explained, through the Wisdom Tree Limited, I developed programs that helped children or tried to circumvent children being referred to the PRUs, or pupil referral units. A pupil referral unit is a educational unit that where children who have been either excluded temporarily or permanently attend, or if they've had long-term or short-term sickness, will also attend in order to get some form of education. The PRUs are not structured like the state schools, that as you know them, but they do provide a form of education. Unfortunately, with these PRUs, they're not run necessarily by people who are qualified teachers, whereas the state school has qualified teachers. They're run for people who have a passion, just as myself, to actually help children within the educational system. But they do provide a form of education for children.
Thank you for that. So obviously, from what you're saying, you've had a lot of experience with working with children that have been excluded. Could you just give us one example or two about working with children from this? Why were they referred, or why have they been excluded, and what are the issues that they face?
Well, I work with 2 types of children. Some that with the Wisdom Tree, I work with children that were in danger of being excluded, and so those programs were to try and help them refocus back to the schools, learning their systems that they're in place so that they could go back to school. But where I had experience where the children were actually excluded, and they, as I said, they could be excluded for a number of reasons. Either the police are involved due to bad behavior within the school. Then we worked with them again to see if they could be reintegrated back into school. With one particular student, he, as he described, was bored in class and was finding that the work that he was given wasn't challenging, And so that caused him to be mischievous. And so he started disrupting the class. But unfortunately for him, he'd been doing it for so long, he built a reputation and then therefore then ended up being excluded. So he was now seen as a problem, as opposed to recognizing that he is quite an astute student and needed work to challenge him. And, you know, when I describe the system that the education system has, sorry for the pun, is that you learn certain things by rote in order to pass exams. So where a child that's quite clever or advanced in their thinking cannot see how this information applies to everyday living, then they start getting bored. And if, as a teacher, you're not trying to do things to engage them while you're helping the other class catch up, then it becomes quite difficult, and then they can become quite disruptive. On another hand, where children have learning difficulties and that's not picked up on time, or sometimes I would describe that as being deliberately ignored because it costs a lot of money to have certain educational plans in place, having teachers to actually assist that specific student, then again, you could see that child developing, having problems, and then later on getting excluded. Yeah.
Wow, so much information. Towards the end of 2021, it was all over the news that we've reached the highest rate, I mean, in so many years of knife crime. 30 children in 2021 were stabbed. And when people were talking about it, and it's an ongoing conversation, like I shared in one of my videos, somebody said, oh, there are a number of issues, and one of them was about educational exclusion. Do you think there is a correlation? What do you think educational exclusion has to do with gang crime or knife crime?
Well, I've never believed that there was a direct correlation, although in my experience, those children that are involved with knife crime or involved in gangs are already involved in those groupings before they've even entered into the pupil referral unit. But what the pupil referral unit then, if you like, facilitates, because the structure is not as rigid as the state school, then the gangs are able to gain easier access to those who are part of the gang, and they're also equally able to go and meet their gang friends and members in order to do whatever they want. Because remember, that gang is their family. And and so, if you like, it's a continuum. It's not a case of that child wasn't necessarily involved in a gang and then now is involved in a gang just because they're in that pupil referral unit. Although I'm not saying that they can't be introduced to a gang, because if the child is perceived as vulnerable, yes. Then those who are grooming them can be very predatory, and that's a lot more easier to do within those settings. Because remember, in a PRU, they're not qualified teachers, as I said. They're trying to provide educational provision. A lot of them have premises that are not like a school setting. They have to go out for lunch. So, for example, one of the educational setting that I was in, the PRU that I was in, we had to take the children out to lunch in order for them to get their lunch, because the centre didn't have any cooking facilities or catering facilities to facilitate the children. So you have to go out. And then when you go out, you're exposed. So again, it's having the staff to be able to cope with that. And sometimes those staff are not able to and don't have the prerequisite qualifications to be able to deal with situations when children are approached, that are known to them on the street. And many a times we would go out when at the time we go out, take the children out, and some of them now they would know the time we were going out for lunch and meet them in the Tesco's or wherever it was we were going. So you didn't have that much control. So you would try and to speak to the child, but if the child wants to talk to that person, you know, there was little you could really do to refrain them from that. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, there's so much here and that we're learning, but what do you think, or what do you think the government or local authorities need to do? Do we have enough, or do we really need our young people to be excluded at that rate? Or do we think something more or more structure should be in place for pupil referral units?
Right. There's a twofold for me. Number one, because of the way schools are ranked now through Ofsted ratings, a lot is determined on that. And anything that is going to skew those ratings, then, you know, you're quickly shifted off if they feel they cannot manage your behavior. That's number one from a systemic point of view. Number two, there does need to be a lot of structure within the pupil referral units, because the level of education and the standard of education that is given in a pupil referral unit compared to a state school is significantly different. You know, and depending on what that pupil referral unit has the capacity to do, then they put that child for exams, etc. But it does have an impact emotionally for those children, because they know, or they feel that the education that they're getting in that pupil referral unit is substandard, and that again builds up anger and frustration with them and their desire to want to come back. But unfortunately, the rate at which children are being excluded, and especially at years 9 and 10, where fundamentally those are the core years where children are taking exams, mock exams, that will impact on their GCSEs. If your child is excluded at that time, then it's very difficult. If you're not trying to institute some private tuition to help them, they will do whatever exam or sit the exams that are available within that pupil referral unit's exam board. And a lot of higher educational establishments do look down on PRUs. It's a status thing. And whether people are conscious of it or parents, I would say parents are not conscious of this at all. And their intervention really is key.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eliyo, for sharing so much of your expertise and knowledge with us today. But this is just part one, viewers. We are going to be talking about something else later on, and that will be about guidance, because Eliyo just said now about the role of parents. Parents need support in this, but we're going to talk about that in our next video. So watch out for part 2. Thank you once again, Eliyo, and thank you for watching me today. Please, if you have a question, you want to subscribe, you want to like, please do. We want to hear from you. Thank you.